Discrimination. Exactly. The whitewash narratives in defense of this shows how many people have lost the plot as to what free speech is and means. Thank you. Exactly. That is exactly what's going on. I had to use a fucking white dude for some of these dumb fucks to understand, even though they're in the fucking community of a dude whose name is Hassan and gets called a fucking terrorist every day. How do you not understand that you being in here right now could mean that your citizenship could be revoked in the fucking future? You're so stupid. Jesus Christ. It's the same fucking name. If they no longer care about due process, and if they arbitrarily designate people as terrorists or showing sympathies to terrorists, one day you will be in the fucking crosshairs. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Reporting terrorists who kill Americans is grounds for visa issuance to be denied. Dr. Alloway's case in federal court has been continued to later in the month. At Logan Airport, Louisa Moeller, WBZ News.
Spike in anti-Semitism we're experiencing right now in America began after the worst instance of violence committed against Jewish people since the Holocaust.
Back in 2023, New York Senator Chuck Schumer made a passionate and personal speech from the Senate floor condemning anti-Semitism, and that is the topic of his new book called Anti-Semitism in America, A Warning. In it, he writes, the rise of anti-Semitism is a, quote, five-alarm fire that threatens American democracy. And Senator Schumer joins us now. Senator, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be with you all.
Wouldn't want to be looking out your window when I woke up this morning, right? You've got protesters out there.
I'm not looking forward to these clips being posted a year from now when everything is worse, exactly as you've said, in an effort to vindicate you. I know. It's just, there's nothing we can stop. I mean, there's nothing we can do to stop it, though, unfortunately, it seems. All we can do is keep resisting with the hopes that, like, you know, inevitably the government will back down from it. Interesting. Double Cirque Tony having a very different tone with Chuck Schumer as he did with Ta-Nehisi Coates. If you recall, you know, he's not saying that this book has writings that could be seen in the backpack of a terrorist.
It's been a difficult few days. We're going to get to that. We're also going to get to the book. But I want to talk about what's going on in the Middle East, because overnight, the ceasefire that had held and that you had celebrated between Israel and Hamas has been broken.
Right.
Your reaction to that, and do you think a ceasefire could get back on the table?
Yes.
Could it be reestablished?
They were really close. And this ceasefire, the second round of the ceasefire is important because first it says Hamas, which I believe has been a large cause of the trouble, would disarm and Israel would remove its soldiers from Gaza. So they were close. It fell apart. I don't know the exact details. It happened overnight. But I think our government has to work really hard to bring them back to the table and get those hostages home. And I think it's possible because they were close at one point.
Now, last week, you and 9 other Democrats helped avert a government shutdown by voting for a Republican-written bill, which many Democrats have been angered by.
Yeah. By the way, the government is considering keying Teslas an act of terror, and dumb fucks in the chat are like, I don't understand. It's just like you went to a funeral proceeding. It's perfectly valid for the government to just like deny you your visa. I have no thoughts in my mind. Certainly, the fascist administrative state will not expand on the definition of terrorism away from people that you agree to people that you like. Certainly, that's never happened historically. This is the problem. This is the issue with violating certain pre-existing protections.
And we've seen it described as a civil war, as a train wreck. Many Democrats believe, you know, if you have a government shutdown, that will force President Trump and Republicans to the negotiating table. Why not use your vote to push back and fight?
Because the idea that they would go to the negotiating table is they don't do it. This is a new group. This is not the old group. Let me explain. I knew when I took this vote, there'd be a lot of protests, but I felt I had to do it for the future, not only of the Democratic Party, but the country. Because here's as bad as that CR bill was, and it was bad, a shutdown is 10 times worse. Let me give you what happens.
Been blamed on the Democrats.
And you're right, Gail. But can I just explain what?
But you had been saying you were not going to vote. I think people were upset with you, and people are very upset with you because you had led people to believe that, no, I'm going to vote against
Okay, well, let me explain why first a shutdown is terrible. People ought to know that. The executive branch, in this case, Musk, Doge, and this horrible guy vote, who have no concern for working people, would have had sole power to determine what opens and what closes. They determine what is essential. You can't go to court. So on day 2, get rid of SNAP and food for hungry kids. It's not essential. Day 4, get rid of mass transit aid. Let New York City do it. Not essential. Cut back on Medicaid and health care. Within 2 weeks, everyone would have been howling. Furthermore, it's even worse.
Oh my God, bro. Bro, you are, oh God. Please step aside, dude. Please, just step down. Yeah, people would be howling. You know at who? The fucking Trump admin for refusing to concede. It's crazy because like his own audience, his own base of support don't want this. His own base of support is saying like, fight back as the Trump administration. Meanwhile, you just gave them the legal jurisdiction to be able to do all of those things down the line. And they immediately cut key expenditures from like mental health treatment and shit. What are you talking about? That was in the bill that you allowed to pass through. Pelosi in San Francisco says she has confidence in Schumer as Senate Dem leader, but offers this reflection on the shutdown fight. I myself don't give away anything for nothing. I think that's what happened the other day. Trump said he was ready to negotiate with the Democrats. Understand me? Trump said he was ready to negotiate with the Democrats. 1 day later, Chuck Schumer conceded. A day after Trump said he would negotiate and talk to the Democrats about this deal, Chuck Schumer conceded without any assurances. It's so crazy that he's still actively trying to make it seem like this was the right decision. This was a smart decision. This was the best decision possible. I know better. They have some dirt on Schumer then? No, they don't. They don't have dirt on Schumer. The only reason why Schumer did this and Kirsten Gillibrand did this is because they're close to Wall Street. It's that simple. They're close to Wall Street, and Wall Street was like, don't fuck up the bag. The market is already incredibly volatile with the tariffs. If you actually put up a fight against the shutdown, then the market is going to dive. It's going to nosedive even further. You have to protect it. That's it. And he did it against the wishes of his constituents. He did it against the preservation of future expenditures for incredibly important programs that people rely on. That's it. That is the only reason why he did this. The reason why he did this is because bosses made a boss call and said, if you actually put up a fight, a strong fight that leads to a government shutdown, then people are going to, if you put up a strong fight that leads to a government shutdown, then market volatility is going to cause a major crash. So he said, yes, sir, I'll play ball.
It has no off-ramp. Guess who determines when we leave the shutdown? The Republicans. And let's not forget how bad they are. This guy, Vogt, probably the most evil man. He's the guy who came up with that Project 2025.
Yes.
Yeah. He has a whole playbook of what to shut down. So they had said, one of the Republican senators who knows said to us, you'll be in the shutdown for 6 to 9 months till we totally destroy the federal government. So the shutdown was a much worse alternative. I knew I'd get a lot of flack.
But Senator,
I took some bullets from other people.
And you're still taking bullets, but should you have let people know you're thinking ahead of time? Because really, people thought...
The problem was it came so fast. Hakeem and I had a strategy, which was to try and get a bipartisan bill, which meant in the House, the Republicans would have not been able to pass it. Only at the last minute did it happen that they all voted for it. And so Patty Murray tried to get that bipartisan bill on Wednesday. That's why I said we didn't have the votes yet. Mm-hmm. They pulled out Wednesday night, and Thursday we had 2 bad choices. But I assure the public, a shutdown would have been the greatest disaster we have to put the government in the sole hands of the evil, nasty, nihilistic people like Musk and Vogt and Trump. Would have been the greatest. We would have had half the federal government we have now. So I thought I did the thing a leader should do. Even when people don't see the danger around the curve, my job was to alert people to it, and I knew I'd get some bullets.
Senator, the leader in question, that is...
He's like, yeah, I fell on my sword bravely. It's not. You flopped. You showed your belly like a coward. There is no honorable way out of this. I don't know why he thinks he's charismatic enough to be able to play this song and dance to make it seem as though he did the right thing, by the way. I don't know who the fuck he's convincing here. Democrats' approval rating is in the dumpster. 29%, dude. 29% approval is crazy. They have a net negative 38% disapproval right now. 38 points in the dumps. They are unimaginably unpopular. Lowest ever. And this fucking dipshit thinks like, nah, this is, you don't understand. I actually did something. I actually did something good. You guys are just too stupid to understand it. And it's funny because that lack of interest in trying to understand where the public is coming from is precisely why the Democrats keep losing. Breaking, Trump has just fired both the Democratic commissioners at the Federal Trade Commission in a potentially illegal move. Nice. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, let's get back to Chuck Schumer. I'm sure he'll have some great takes on this too.
Is actually what people are debating right now. There are people in your party who don't want you to be a leader in the party anymore. And it's a question of what is this moment and what does it require? I want to ask a question about that moment involving the Venezuelan deportations and the court hearings around it. Put the charges or lack of evidence or whatever against these men aside for now. And let's just talk about the interaction of the Trump administration.
Can you counter his argument as that the government shutdown would accelerate towards more federal cuts? Yes, because government shutdowns are unpopular. When you furlough employees, you immediately accelerate the process. And when you accelerate that process, there is a messaging battle that the Democrats can engage in where they can actively communicate to the population, this is what the Trump administration is doing. That means all of the harm and all the responsibility will be attributed to the Trump administration. Okay? And they can't attain that level of unpopularity for too long. People are going to start freaking the fuck out. People are going to start panicking. The market is going to start collapsing. In that process, it is infinitely better for the Democrats to have put up a fight and communicated the real villains here, especially because if you pass this continued resolution, you already give them the legal power to start closing the money faucet on certain expenditures that the government has power over that Congress is giving to the presidency, and the president has already done that. They're doing it with Doge in a slower process, and they're now doing it with the additional authorization that Congress approved. You've basically said, oh, I'm scared that people might yell at me for forcing a government shutdown, which, you know, if done correctly, would obviously, understandably put the blame on Trump. So instead, I'm giving Trump an opportunity to legally do the exact same thing that a shutdown would do in a way that also offers him cover, in a way that offers him shelter and legal protection.
And the court.
Yes.
They seem to take the position that this court doesn't have jurisdiction over them, and you have Tom Homan saying he doesn't care what the judge thinks. What did Democrats do if and when the Trump administration defies a federal judge?
First of all,
yeah, those cuts he's talking about would not be permanent. It forces the party in power to come to the bargaining table and reinstate things that their base would righteously be angry about. Meanwhile, when you go without a fight and offer Trump the opportunity to cut down federal programs, you basically gave him the legal authorization to do so in a longer timeline. And you gave him shelter. You gave him shelter from scrutiny. It's fucked up.
we have to have rule of law. People say, well, that's not me. If we get rid of rule of law, the 248-year tradition in America, this democracy is over, okay? So it's vital to stop it. There are two courts.
How do the Democrats do that?
There are two courts. One is the court of public opinion. And the public has to make, if this happens, they have to make their voices known, Democrats, Republicans, everyone, in the strongest terms, because it's ending our democracy. Now, but we also have the courts. And so far, the lower courts have done a good job. We hope the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court will do the same job. When the lower courts, and I'm very proud that we put in all those judges last year, many of whom are making these decisions, when the lower courts thus far have said to the Trump administration, you must stop, in most cases they have.
But you hear the Trump administration saying we're not going to
Yeah.
pay attention to the court.
If they don't,
Yeah.
and we go to the Supreme Court and it is defied, democracy is at real risk. and there will have to be extraordinary action taken.
Tony touched on it, Senator.
And that is by the people, by everybody.
But there are people in your own party that are saying, look, it's time for you to go. They no longer trust your leadership. They want somebody else in there. What do you say about that?
Here's what I say.
In your own party saying
Yes.
you've got to go.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm the best leader for the Senate. We have a lot of leaders. You know, when you don't have a president, there's not one leader of the party. There are lots of them. We have a lot of good people. But I am the best at keep winning Senate seats. I've done it in 2005. Just in 2020, no one thought we'd take back the Senate. Under my leadership, we took it. So we now are executing.
You're not going anywhere.
We have a.
You lost seats. What are you fucking talking about? The best. Why are you the minority leader right now? What does that mean? You were the majority leader. Now you're the minority leader.
Great. We're moving forward. Hakeem and I have a plan. Let me just say this. There's a real contrast between the parties. The Republican Party now, particularly in office, is the party of rich oligarchs who want to really...
Yeah. Democrats learn from the Republicans and they're now lying too. Yeah, but they're lying in the wrong direction. I don't want the Democrats to lie. I want them to earnestly push for genuine changes. Okay? But even if they're going to lie, I want them to lie in the direction of seizing more power. Basically, his argument is that if they shut the government down, then Trump would violate the law. So they decided to change the law to make what Trump is doing legal. That means rule of law is still working. Exactly. Exactly. This way, they preserve the integrity of the institutions as Donald Trump keeps violating them. It's best to play dead because if we put up a fight, God forbid, then Trump is going to hurt our feelings. Trump is going to violate the norms. We can't have that. Fucking Christ, dude. Coward.
Screw every average American so they can get tax cuts for the rich. And we are fighting that every day. So today, we just issued a statement at 8 o'clock that describes it. Hakeem and I, we have a day of action on Medicaid. In every state, in every corner of the country, Democrats are talking about they're going to Medicaid centers. They're going to people who would be deprived and
Senator, people don't have faith in the Democrats.
Well, let me say this.
And those average Americans.
And we're going to do this day in, day out on issues. Why are they doing tariffs and raising your cost $2,000? It's beginning to work. Why are they taking away Fannie and Freddie and raising your housing costs dramatically? It's beginning to work. His numbers have come down. If we keep at it every day, relentless fighting and showing how they're hurting people so badly, Trump's numbers will get much lower. And his both popularity, but also his effectiveness will decline. I believe that strategy will work.
May I hold up the book?
Yes.
Yeah, let's get to the book.
This is why you were here.
Yes.
Because news that stays news, anti-Semitism.
Yes. Yeah, it's coming out at a time where you said you never thought you'd have to write this book, but you never thought anti-Semitism would be as bad as it is.
Yes.
You said for many non-Jewish people, it's alarming, but it's not a real problem and not a priority. And to that you say...
Yeah, Jewish people, we carry 5,000 years of history on our back. Conor Cruz O'Brien, the great Irish poet, said anti-Semitism is a light sleeper. When things get bad, often, almost in too many societies, it turns on the Jews. You know, I was brought up between 1950, I was born in 1950. For the first 50 years, the Jewish people, we call it the Golden Medina. Jews did great in America, like everybody else. We were advancing up the ladder. There was very little anti-Semitism because the pall of the Holocaust hung over America, and people realized what could happen. But starting in 2000 with 9/11, a little worse in the financial crisis, where a lot of them accused.
Yeah. When I think of bigotry that was supercharged after 9/11, I think of the Jews did 9/11 conspiracies. Okay? And not fucking Islamophobia that became government mandated so that we could justify the atrocities that we committed over there. That's crazy, dude. I don't know. God damn, dude. That is fucking insane. Progressive, by the way. Progressive Party, by the way. You should be fucking embarrassed. It's crazy. You should be embarrassed to say this.
Jewish financiers. But it got much worse in 2017. So that for the first time, Jewish Americans say, maybe it could happen here. Like it happened.
Yeah, who could forget the first hate crime post 9/11 which was, of course, a Jewish man. Oh, wait, it wasn't. It wasn't even a Muslim man, actually. It was a Sikh person that the psychopath thought was Muslim.
Happened everywhere else. So I wrote this
chilling,
book.
yes, that's
I wrote this book aimed at 5 audiences, and then I'll add a 6th. First, my generation. So they see we're not alone. My experience is often their experience. Second, to my generation's children. They know what's going on, but they didn't know the struggles of Israel, the history of anti-Semitism. You know, they know
The struggles of Israel.
our holidays. There's a joke about the
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was post World War II in the United States of America. It was a historic period, according to Chucky here, where there was no anti-Semitism famously. Why? Because we deported Jews as the American government in the same exact way that the Nazis wanted to deport or put Jews into concentration camps for being suspected communists, of course. That's right. But that period was perfect for Jews, according to Chuck Schumer. Now, don't make any inferences on what the American government might do later down the line.
3 words that describe every Jewish holiday. They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat.
Yes.
So they know about it. But third, it's aimed at non-Jewish people who say, you know, it's bad, but why are they so sensitive? You read this book, you'll see it.
Right.
Finally, I'm aiming it at my left, my people on the left, my friends on the left. I've always been a progressive, but we've always seen anti-Semitism on the right. You saw those people at 9/11, at January 6th wearing shirts that more than 6 million. But now a lot of it's trickled over to the left, and that's bad too.
Yeah, the real fear is the leftist anti-Semitism. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you for tackling the real issues right now in this day and age. Anti-Semitism coming from the left, which is, of course, having thoughts about Israel, saying Israel is an apartheid state. Because remember, this dipshit told the New York Times, yeah, he thought January 6th is 9/11, by the way, which is a fantastic Freudian slip from Chuck. But this dipshit told the New York Times that the UN anti-Semitically says Israel is doing a genocide. He said the United Nations is anti-Semitic. You're out of your fucking mind, dude. I'm not entertaining this conversation. I hate it. I hate it so much. I fucking hate it so goddamn much. There are varying degrees of fear, some of which comes from an understandable perspective given Jewish history around the planet, okay? Given the history of the Holocaust. And then there is the other side of saying that my own personal feelings as someone who is in support of Israel are being hurt, and therefore the genocide should continue and you shouldn't say anything about it. The moment that you move into that territory, the moment that you start chirping about that, you fucking lost me, okay? Fuck you and fuck your feelings. Suck my dick.
I hope every student and every school makes this advisory or required reading. And you know who else should read it? Donald Trump.
I'm sure you're
He
publishing.
has shown, let me just say this.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Hold on. Let's finish the Chucky boy media, the stupid ass takes that he had, because I'm going to show you one more thing I'm going to show you a thing that he said on The View too.
He'd do a lot to
Senator,
read it because Donald Trump, let me just finish this quick point.
How is that different from what Kanye West is saying? Wait, what? Your feelings in defense of Israel being called out is not more important than, 1, free speech protections, and 2, being able to actively criticize the Israeli government for doing a genocide with our tax dollars is the same as what Kanye West is saying? Stupid? Were you dropped on your head as a baby? You think that's the same? You think falsely conflating Israel's actions with Judaism and then assuming a defensive posture that centers your own personal feelings about Israel's continued genocide is the same as saying that, Kanye West loves Adolf Hitler, just over and over again, repeating that and making swastika merchandise. If my grandmother had wheels, she would be a bicycle. All the years of the left standing against modern neo-Nazis who spewed anti-Semitism throughout the rise of the alt-right, as shit-libs scolded the left for antagonizing the right, now the shit-libs are accusing the left of being anti-Semitic. Yeah.
Point. Donald Trump has shown that he regards Jews as transactional. Oh, they're good for votes, they're good for money. He has no understanding of the Jewish people, and it leads him to do bad things, sitting down with that anti-Semite fool when Charlottesville occurred, saying both.
They made it back. Dude, I came right at the... Look at that.
And SpaceX Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
You guys got to see it.
Copy splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny.
Look at the timing.
On behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
It is an amazing, what a ride. I see a capsule full of grins ear to ear.
And as you can see on your screen, we have visual confirmation of splashdown. Dragon Freedom has returned home, and NASA astronauts.
System safety verifications are in progress. We'll report back
Dragging
when recovery
these
personnel
nuts.
are in route.
One of them is going to lightly criticize Elon Musk at some point, and Elon's going to throw a fucking fit. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Especially the ones that came back, because they were already criticizing Elon. And Elon called him the R word. Didn't he?
It is necessary.
He literally said the astronaut in space was like fucking stupid.
In the distance, we can see the recovery vessel making its way.
Copy, you're in section 2 for the environmental assessment in 4.800. That is not necessary today.
Understand. Raising 5.
So we will continue to have communications between the Corps and Nick Hague, the commander of Crew Dragon Freedom, which just splashed down 2 minutes ago off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon Freedom has returned home with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbunoff. They're back on Earth after approximately 17 hours of a return journey from space.
The SpaceX recovery ship and team have been waiting for Dragon's splashdown, and they will now make their way to the splashdown location. The teams have been ready and waiting about 3 nautical miles away, so it's going to take them about 30 minutes or so to make their way to
SpaceX Freedom.
Copy, Stable 1. We see the same.
It's going to take about 30 minutes for the recovery team to make their way over to Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander, who are still seated and secured inside that Dragon spacecraft there on your screen. Incredible views there of that thermal protection system, or TPS. That Dragon capsule was pristine, white color before it departed the station, and we can see how the reentry phase, the thermal protection system did its job. Now, if you're wondering what that hole, that like bucket area is, that is underneath the side hatch. That is where the main parachutes were stored.
This is CGI.
When we saw the Dragon capsule docked at station, it looked very different. The panel that protects and covers the main parachutes, that was still intact, as well as the panels that enclose where the drogue parachutes are located. We can see fast
Freedom.
boats.
SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in the next few minutes.
Freedom copies.
We can see those fast boats. We weren't kidding when we said they were fast. While it does take about 30 minutes for the main recovery vessel to make its way over to the capsule, these fast boats will be doing a couple of things simultaneously. A couple of them are going to be working to retrieve the parachutes that you see in the background there of this drone shot. Those parachutes will be retrieved from the ocean
Clearly
surface.
flat.
We want to make sure we
The Earth, I mean.
we are able to pull those out. The recovery vessel there closest to the spacecraft is going to be performing some safety checks. We can see there they're using an instrument that is basically working to detect if there are any hypergolic vapors or fumes that are still residing in and or around the Draco thruster nozzles or outlets. The hypergolic fuel, which is necessary for on-orbit burns to maneuver the spacecraft. Unfortunately, those hypergolics are unable to be breathed. They are toxic, and so this team here is doing those initial safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the rest of the recovery team to approach the spacecraft. They're also checking to make sure that any residuals from the pyros are safe and are not going to cause any issues. We can see the team working their way around the spacecraft to do these basically these sniff tests on all of those Draco thrusters.
And as we continue to await the recovery of our Dragon spacecraft with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov inside, Dragon has autonomously completed several steps to safe itself following splashdown. We are continuing to see Dragon in what is known as stable 1 configuration. That's kind of the ideal configuration following splashdown. It's upright, and the Dragon capsule is in the right configuration for it to be hoisted into the recovery vessel Megan, which you do see a little ways off in your screen approaching. Dragon will continue to remain live on air with you through that recovery process, all the way through the point where the crew is extracted from the Dragon spacecraft. Now, if you are just joining us, the mission has gone smoothly so far. Dragon successfully splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon.
Approximately 17 hours prior to splashdown, Dragon autonomously undocked from the International Space Station, completed a series of departure burns, jettisoned its trunk section, and performed its final burn, the deorbit burn. This placed the Dragon spacecraft on a trajectory toward Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon successfully re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, followed by deployment of its parachutes to slow the spacecraft down to a gentle
that previously
splashdown.
went up there on a Boeing
We're now
mission
going to follow the
and bring them back down to Earth.
Unfired ordnance checks
This is a successful mission.
Rigging is in progress. Approximately 25 minutes until capsule lift. Stand by for PMC with SpaceX flight surgeon.
And so what we did just hear there was communications that those hypergol checks were complete. They didn't find any of that upon those checks, so we'll continue to move through the timeline. Next up is a process called rigging, which you see happening right now on your screen. This is when a SpaceX recovery personnel actually works to climb aboard the capsule and work through procedures ahead of lifting onto the nest of the recovery vessel Megan. We heard it's going to be about 25 minutes or so until that lift actually takes place.
Okay, Freedom, the next call will be from the SpaceX flight surgeon on Dragon and Ground Private.
Stop the steal.
Understand. Thank you.
Too big to rig.
Callouts there indicating that the crew will have the opportunity to do a quick check-in with the SpaceX flight surgeon. This is standard procedure for every Dragon spacecraft when it returns to Earth. It's just an initial check-in, make sure everybody is doing okay. They will also have another check-in with the flight surgeon once they are on board that recovery vessel that you see there in the background. We can now see that SpaceX recovery team member they're on top of the Dragon spacecraft. They are going to be working to install plugs in the Draco thrusters to ensure that none of those, and to ensure that no more hypergolic fumes or vapors come out from the spacecraft. They'll also place harnessing around the spacecraft that are required in order to lift it out of the water. Go ahead, Sandra.
Continuing to get some views of the recovery personnel, both the main recovery vessel Megan, as well as some of those fast boats that we've discussed previously. It looks like just a beautiful day there out off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Weather was pristine. We were able to get undocked from the International Space Station as expected at 10:05 p.m. Pacific time yesterday evening, and Crew Dragon has since completed steps ahead of its splashdown at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, and we're now stepping through procedures to get Dragon hoisted up onto the Megan recovery vessel and get the crew extracted out of the spacecraft. And you did see some of the parachutes that were near the spacecraft. Upon detection of landing, Dragon automatically releases those main parachutes to prevent wind from pulling the spacecraft. Dragon then automatically safes any pyrotechnics that may still be present on the vehicle and may automatically perform additional minor system reconfigurations. The astronauts will remain seated and in their suits at this point, but the onboard air conditioning keeps things temperature controlled inside the spacecraft so the crew remains comfortable, and the communication systems.
Freedom, SpaceX, ComCheck.
SpaceX, this is Freedom. Loud and clear.
Copy that, Freedom. Have you loud and clear as well, and Dragon to ground is no longer private.
Understand, thank you.
As we saw there on the screen, we have a couple of fast boats in the recovery fleet that have quickly
they
moved
better make sure that the
into
astronauts don't have
splashdown
any weird
location.
photos on their fucking phones as they're denied entry into the States. You guys don't have anything in their camera roll? Exactly.
The two fast boats have very specific roles. Excuse me. The first approach is focused on immediate safety inspection, as we saw. They do this for spacecraft integrity and checking for any presence of those hypergolic propellant vapors. And this ensures that it is safe for the recovery vessel to approach Dragon. Once Dragon is cleared for full approach, as we heard is the case today, the team begins rigging the spacecraft for water recovery by the recovery ship. The second fast boat is responsible for parachute recovery and also serves as a redundant boat to the first one that makes the initial approach to the Dragon spacecraft. As we saw a little bit earlier, we were also able to see one of the recovery team members get on a jet ski to help gather up the parachutes that were automatically detached from the Dragon spacecraft upon splashdown.
And it will take a little over 10 minutes for the recovery crew to complete their safety checks. Once complete, the team will begin preparing Dragon to be lifted. And as you see, they are preparing for that to take place at this point. As part of the preparation for this lift, one member of the recovery team has climbed on top of the spacecraft already so they can attach Dragon's hoist rings and connect to the lifting lines. It will take us less than an hour to raise Dragon to the recovery boat and remove the crew from the spacecraft. After medical checkouts, the crew will return to land within 4 hours by helicopter. And if no additional medical assistance is needed, the crew will board a waiting NASA plane and depart for Houston.
I got on right as they were doing the splashdown. Chatters that follow the Hasanabi broadcast got to see it. All right. Anyway, this stuff is kind of somewhat boring. Let's finish Chuck Schumer being a dipshit and then move on to Jon Stewart.
Sides are to blame. Cutting off funds to our synagogues that need protection from anti-Semitism.
Senator, this is an important question here. Yes. You're doing the one hand, it's like Fiddler on the Roof here. Yes. One hand, and on the other hand, this is an important question, though, that a lot of people struggle with. Anti-Semitism, and then the line between anti-Semitism and criticism of Israel, its government, its actions.
Great question. To criticize Israel is not anti-Semitic. I've done it. I got a lot of flack when I criticized Netanyahu a while back.
Oh, yeah.
But when it goes over...
But I get to dictate how you do it, okay? I get to dictate how you do it. Yeah, when I criticize Israel, they call me anti-Semitic as well, even though I'm Jewish. But, of course, I will turn around and willingly do the exact same stupid thing to other people.
The line, and you call someone an effing Zionist or effing Jew? How about the guy who went on the subway car and said, all Zionists get out of the subway car? How about the head of the Brooklyn Museum, Jewish, but nothing to do with Israel, whose house was scarred in red paint? And when people say, from the river to the sea, that's the Hamas slogan. Hamas is genocidal. They want to get rid of all the Jews.
So funny. Israel currently doing a genocide, saying that that's a genocide is anti-Semitic. Hamas not doing a genocide, experiencing a genocide, those are the real genocidal guys. Very cool. Thanks, man. Yeah, it seems like you got your priorities in order for sure. Yeah. Yeah, keep repeating this fucking idiotic lie. Like, oh yeah, all Jews are Zionist. When you say fuck Zionism or fuck Zionists, you mean fuck Jews. This is great. It's definitely a great way to combat anti-Semitism. To continue the conflation between Judaism and Israel might, in the short term, make you falsely believe that you're able to eviscerate any sort of real critique against Israel. Not like what Chuck Schumer thinks is appropriate critique, just in general. But in the long term, all you're doing is teaching people to be anti-Semitic.
No, their charter says, that a Jew behind a tree? Shoot him.
Yeah.
When Hamas does these things
Senator,
and says river to the sea, that is anti-Semitic.
I'm sorry, the nature of these morning shows is the commercials come very fast. We're going to go to the break here. I hope people do read it. Anti-Semitism in America, a warning, is on sale today. Senator Schumer, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for doing what you do, and thank you
We'll
for
be right back.
caring about the...
It's so funny that, like,
It appears that
he very openly talked about the real issue here, which is saying shit about Israel. Anyway, here's Chuck Schumer.
I don't think we have an authenticity problem. We have a real direction now. I feel good about it. I am hopeful that our Republican colleagues will resume working with us. And I talk to them. One of the places I told them to go in the gym, you know, when you're on that bike in your shorts, panting away next to a Republican, a lot of the inhibitions come off. I don't think we have an authenticity problem. We have a real direction now. I feel good about it. I am hopeful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks, dude. Also, here's another thing that he said on The View. The women raped and the baby's heads chopped off brutally. Chuck Schumer is still spreading atrocity propaganda on his book tour. While promoting a book about anti-Semitism, he's literally spreading the lies that have been used to justify genocide. Debunked atrocity propaganda.
Senator, I want to talk to you about your book.
Yes,
because you're
thank
here
you.
to talk about this, a new book, Anti-Semitism in America, a Warning. Now, as the highest-ranking Jewish official in the U.S., this is clearly
Ever, by the way, ever.
Ever.
Who would have thought an exterminator's son?
But it's very personal to you.
It is.
Why are you writing it now?
Okay, good. So I was born in 1950, and it was sort of called the golden era for Jews in America and in our whole history, because first America was all moving up. You know, my father...
No, it was the golden era for Jews because all the bad Jews were getting fucking blacklisted for being communist. You know? That's why it was the golden era for Jews, you know? All the Jews that were getting blacklisted were the bad Jews that Chuck didn't like. You know, the socialists and the communists and those who were sympathetic to the plight of marginalized people. You know, those Jews, they were getting fucking threatened with deportation. They were getting blacklisted. Government commissions were being created. Golden era for Jews. Yeah, not allowed in the same like public spaces where the Gentiles were allowed to frequent. Cool. It's probably because Israel was established in 1948. No, there was anti-Semitism that was significantly more alarming and normalized in the United States of America in the fucking 50s. He's delusional for saying this. It's so stupid. Part of that was because, much like old Adolf, that America had fought not that long ago at that time, the American fascist movement was basically saying the exact same shit about Judeo-Bolshevism. But instead of saying Judeo-Bolshevism, they were just like, oh, these are communist Jews. That's what they were saying. Oh, are you in favor of civil rights? Or are you going to participate in the civil rights struggle? Oh, you're a Jew communist. The thing that frustrates me to no end is that throughout history, it is a relatively new phenomena. It is a relatively new phenomena where like Jews have not been on the historically revolutionary front, and they still are, but I'm saying like in overwhelming numbers. Like this is why Zionism is such a blight. Is the real mind virus. Like it is unimaginable to tell Jews in like the 50s and 60s that one day universally American Jews are gonna fucking run around and say the same fucking fascist shit that killed their immediate relatives. Like they would be like, what the fuck are you saying? As a matter of fact, some American Jews did see that. Some German Jews did see that. And they were very frustrated about it. Albert Einstein, he was one of the people that called this out fairly early, condemning Zionism. Now he'd be called a token Jew or woke.
My grandpa worked in the paper mills. My father moved up and became a little more in the middle class. Everyone was. So that was a great moment. But for the Jewish people, it was an amazing time. When there's been so much anti-Semitism in 5,000 years of history, there was almost none in America. And the reason, to tell you the truth, the Holocaust and the horror of the Holocaust hung like a curtain over America. So in the past, when Jews were excluded from living in a certain place, from going to a certain company, or all that sort of went away, and even the innuendo language went away. In 2000, it started to change a little bit, because what we've learned, folks, when there's trouble, often, not in America, but even now in America, but in the past in America, people, well, they did in the past, but when there's trouble in the world, people often turn on the Jews. Yeah. That's been true for centuries of history. And so we had 9/11, and a few people were saying, oh, the Jews did it, they all escaped. Then we had the financial crisis caused by the Jewish bankers. But it was really never that bad until 2017. And until October 7th last year. Yeah. And all of a sudden,
when the Jews were attacked
were attacked by Hamas initially, and the women raped, and the little babies' heads chopped off, and all of that brutally. And all of a sudden, anti-Semitism developed, not just protesting what Israel was doing. That's legitimate. I've criticized, as you know,
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Netanyahu, because I think he didn't handle the war exactly right.
Overkill.
But real anti-Semitism. So a Jewish bakery, they threw a rock through the window. You're a Zionist. There's a woman who lives near me. She's head of the Brooklyn Museum. She's Jewish. She has nothing to do with Israel. They painted red paint all over her house. People who wore yarmulkes or Jewish stars were punched and vilified. And all sorts of nasty terms were thrown, not just for people for their support of it. There was a scene in New York, people got on a subway car. Whoever's a Zionist, stand up and raise your hand. That didn't mean whoever's a Zionist. They didn't know what whoever's a Jew.
Yeah.
So for the first time, my generation, who had lived in such a...
Yeah, this is why we should keep Israel, we should make it illegal to criticize Israel. You want to know why Chuck Schumer is a fucking charlatan and a fraud? Talking about anti-Semitism skyrocketing. Barely a fucking blip on the radar is Charlottesville, where neo-Nazis are fucking going through the streets. He basically says 2017 is when it skyrocketed, and then immediately moves on to talk about what he actually cares about, which is protesting Israel is actually being done by these like random fucking dickheads. Some of the stories that he's talking about are people who are actively doing shit at the behest of Israel and then getting protested. Others are like random anti-Semitic incidents that you're lopping up, that you're basically just compounding into criticisms of Israel. Those are not criticisms of Israel. If that was the case, why is the fucking Trump administration actively going after people who didn't do any of that shit? He said 2017, then corrected himself. He doesn't think it skyrocketed. He blamed October 7. Yeah. He accidentally said Charlottesville, and then he moved on from Charlottesville. Yeah, he loves criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu. That's why he fucking welcomed him with open arms to the American Congress.
Great time is wondering. Jewish people wonder always in the back of our heads, could it happen here? So first I gave a speech on the floor where I condemned anti-Semitism on the right and the left. It's in both places. It's like a pincer. But I kept thinking and thinking. I felt I had to write this book. And let me just say, I've written it for 5 audiences, okay? Quickly. First, my generation. So they know they don't feel alone. Here's me, the majority leader, then majority leader, now minority leader. And we always feel alone. Here's how I felt. You're going to empathize. Second, for their children, Jewish people's children, who know the history, but not really the way we do. How, we've been suffering through all the years. You know the funny joke about the 3 lines that describe every Jewish holiday? They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. Okay, so that. It's aimed at non-Jewish people who have always been sympathetic to Jewish people and to Israel. And I know what people think, because my friends talk to me. They say, why are you so sensitive? This is not so bad. But they don't carry the 5,000 years of Jewish history on their shoulder. When things begin to get bad, they could get worse. Everyone thought the Jews were in great shape in Germany in 1920, and look what happened. I lost relatives who were marched, machine gunned down from 85 years old to 3 months old on my great-grandmother's porch. And fourth, I wrote it about anti-Semitism, right, but I wrote it particularly to the left. Me being a progressive Democrat, I thought I ought to talk to people on the left that you can't be anti-Semitic and you're sliding into it. When you say by any means necessary, does that mean kill all the Jews? When you say genocide, a vicious term, that people may not feel Israel did it the right way, but it's not genocide. It's Hamas.
Huh. He's like, that's our term. What the fuck? He's like, you can't do that. Excuse me. Like, what do you mean, dude? Yeah, the Holocaust happened. It was a genocide. And now Israel is genocide. It's so shameless. It's so shameless to use the real issue of anti-Semitism growing only to literally contribute to its growth. Only to genuinely contribute to its growth by continuing the conflation between Israel and Judaism and writing a fucking book about a real issue, right? And then doing this book tour specifically to shit on pro-Palestinians by saying, oh, you're just not protesting the right way. There's a right way to do it. Don't say from the river to suck my dick. The fuck do you mean don't say from the river to the sea? What an insane thing to do. If you actually cared about anti-Semitism, like truly, you probably wouldn't be making these conflations. You'd be actually disparaging people who make these associations. The IHRA definition of anti-Semitism is so funny because, like, on the one hand, it correctly points out real instances of anti-Semitism. On the other hand, it then argues from the opposite position. It is an inherently hypocritical stance to make. You can't say Jews have dual loyalty to Israel. This is correct. This is correct. Can't say that. That is anti-Semitic. But also, if you criticize Israel, you're criticizing all Jews. Okay, what the fuck are you saying? What do you mean? So you can conflate Jews and Israel as long as you are pro-Israel. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It is inherently illogical. It does not make sense. These things, like these concepts, are directly at odds with one another. It's so fucking stupid.
Hamas, who does genocide, who wanted to kill all the Jews wherever they are.
Yeah, this part is also funny.
So I wrote it for them, and
like this is also hilarious. It's like, yeah, Hamas is actually genociders, not Israel, the people doing the genocide. Like, what can Israel do that Chuck Schumer would consider genocide? There were plenty of prominent Zionists, like the dude who founded the Human Rights Watch, who was a Zionist, or probably still is a Zionist, who said initially post-October 7, I thought what Israel was doing was right. When I realized that Israel was denying humanitarian aid from going into Gaza, there was no other way to analyze the situation. This is a genocide. This is a genocide. That dude is like, that dude's a Holocaust survivor. You know what I mean? His fucking family members were killed in the Holocaust. He's a Human Rights Watch. He does not want to say Israel's doing a genocide. I promise you. Oh.
And finally, I hope this will be read by college students, high school students who don't know the history.
No, I know Human Rights Watch declared it a genocide. I'm saying the steps that Human Rights Watch took, even its like founder and its leader, and they did not want to call it a genocide. My point is that it was irrefutable. And it is irrefutable. It's impossible to look at the situation. Look at the situation that Israel has put Palestinians through and not recognize it for what it is. It's a fucking genocide. That's why virtually every human rights organization has branded it as such. That's why other instruments of international justice have branded it as such.
Who don't know what's gone on. And I believe if everyone read it, and I'll tell you there's one other person who should read it. Donald Trump. No, seriously.
I've been watching you for some time. I gotta say, you really put yourself through mental gymnastics to defend Hamas. I don't need to do mental gymnastics to defend Hamas, dumbass. What the fuck are you talking about? If you've been watching me for a long enough time, then you would have recognized that I am not sitting here and arguing about how Palestinian militancy evolved. I'm telling you how it evolved with historical accuracy. Okay? That's it. These guys did not decide one day magically to be like, I hate Jews. I want to kill all of them. That's not how this works. That's what Chuck Schumer is saying. That's not the reality. What? Hi, Hasanabi. I've been watching you for some time. I just wanted to ask one question to make a final conclusion on you. What do you think about prosecutors such as Alvin Bragg? How is that wrong? Let's focus on our own before migrants. There is no mental gymnastics necessary. Hamas and every fucking Palestinian militancy group that is actively fighting against Israel inside of the Gaza Strip are literally doing something that is completely allowed by international human rights. Okay? It's called a spontaneous militia. You can organize and fight against a belligerent occupier. It is not only legal, it is the moral imperative. Understand that. In terms of October 7, I've said over and over again that targeting civilians, killing civilians is not appropriate, but I understand how the Palestinian resistance have evolved with the violence they've been subjected to as they've been backed into a fucking corner over and over again. I don't want that to happen. I don't want October 7 to happen, and I definitely don't want what has unfolded since October 7, which is on October 7 basically every single day that Israel is committed against the Palestinian population. And I've been saying this since fucking day one. There is no mental gymnastics here. There is no mental gymnastics. It's like saying, oh, dude, you're jumping through a lot of hoops to justify the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the Jewish resistance groups during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising seems to me. No, motherfucker, I'm not jumping through hoops. And neither will you. If history does have a bend towards justice, which I do believe it does, okay? Because people can't maintain cruelty forever. But if history does have an arc towards justice, an arc towards justice, then I do believe one day you won't actually fucking shelter this opinion. You will actually turn around and lie about the positions that you took back then. Yeah. I don't have to jump through hoops to defend the American Revolution. I don't have to jump through hoops to defend any kind of abolitionist movement against slavers in the South. I don't have to jump through hoops to defend the IRA. I don't have to jump through hoops to defend the ANC in apartheid South Africa, the FLN, numerous other movements that were all branded and declared terrorist movements. Motherfuckers would be like, Hassan, you're jumping through hoops. I literally have I had an entire merch line called John Brown Hunting Club. What the fuck do you think John Brown did? Who do you think John Brown is? John Brown is an American homegrown abolitionist terrorist. At the time, it was legal to have slaves. It was illegal to free slaves. That's what John Brown was doing. He was doing something illegal. He was branded a fucking terrorist for it. That's why it's so funny when motherfuckers would turn around and be like, Hassan, you've changed. It's like, no, dude, you just didn't know anything and you still don't know anything. Shut the fuck up.